Oh man, it's all coming down to these last two Pokemon for Jonathan.
The year is 2016. Wolf Glick and Jonathan Evans are on their second game in a set of 3 in the Pokemon Video Game World Championship. With the first match under his belt, Wolf just needs to win this game to take home the $10,000 prize. Jonathan, fairly new to the tournament scene, has made it all the way to top 2 in his first World Tournament. Wolf is on the brink of quitting Pokemon altogether after failing several attempts to make it to this very spot and losing the one time he did. Whatever the outcome of this match is will be the deciding factor. There's a lot riding on this. Both players have been on their back foots throughout this game, but Jonathan has gained the upper hand. What you're seeing is a turn that will decide who will go down in history as the 2016 Pokemon Video Game World Champion.
Groudon's not going to take any damage here, but nothing else.
Oh, he calls it!
Oh, he went for the Swords Dance. Can't play passive against Wolf or he will just set up in your face.
Oh my!
Instead of attacking, Wolf realizes the pressure he's put on Jonathan and decides to set up instead. While Jonathan protects his Groudon, Wolf Swords Dances, raising Rayquaza's attack for free. This decision is what separates you and me from a world champion.
Finally, Wolf Glick gets to lift the first place trophy, not the runner-up, and his fans are going wild in the crowd.
Just look at him.
Drink it in.
So happy.
Just drink it in.
Pokemon is and isn't an esport. If you told the hardcore play every day, buy both copies, beat the game, and complete the Pokédex fan, they'd say yes, Pokemon is an esport. But if you told your average fan, they'd probably say, the trading card game? That doesn't count as an esport, does it? I guess there's an online version, but no. The video game. The Pokemon video game is an esport. In fact, there's a huge chunk of the fan base that has no idea there's even a competitive scene for the Pokemon video games. Maybe they were aware at one point in time, but there's no way there is now, right? Wrong. Competitive Pokemon is alive and well. Why doesn't anyone know about it? Why does nobody care? Why am I forced to either watch a live stream or spend hundreds of dollars to travel to another part of the country to attend these events? Why does the Pokemon company not want this to be an esport that people can take seriously, like Fortnite? The problem with competitive Pokemon is that the barrier of entry is just too high. Like any competitive video game, a meta formed. But unlike most esports, this one required more than just talent, more than just money. It required time and talent and money. Let's take this back to the beginning. The 90s. The 1890s. A little company called Nintendo was on the come up selling playing cards. Flash forward 100 years later, Nintendo, now a major player in the video game market, is making a fortune selling carts. See what I did there? They were selling cards and now they're selling carts. These cartridges held within them data that would soon become so influential and important to pop culture that we all simultaneously contracted a disease dubbed Pokemon fever. Video games, trading cards, toys, bedsheets. We had a fever. The only cure? Time. There's that word again. Why does it matter so much? We grew out of it. By the early 2000s, the number of cases of Pokemon fever were going down. We had another generation of Pokemon that kept us going for a few years, but eventually we just became immune to it. The second generation of Pokemon games that added new Pokemon, a new region, and a few cool tweaks to the formula, and new typings, shinies, a day-night cycle, and breeding. Breeding, remember that. Not in a weird way, though. But this variant of Pokemon Fever wasn't different enough. Generation 3 gave us better graphics, natures, and abilities. These will come into play later, too. Natures and abilities, that is. Alright, graphics too, I guess. Come on. But it still wasn't enough. Sale numbers were all saying one thing, 16.22 million. This is a lower number than they wanted. What's the point of capitalism for not making more money than it did before? Exponential profit. You ever heard of it? So after going back to the well a few more times, it was time for the biggest, most important change ever made to Pokemon. And if you're not a hardcore fan, this will probably mean nothing to you, but bear with me for a minute here. The physical, special, split. Pokemon that sucked could now rule. Pokemon typings used to be split into 2 categories, physical or special. So if they were a water Pokemon with a high physical attack stat and a low special attack stat, yeah, I know it doesn't say physical, shut up. If a Pokemon had a low stat and required that stat to be high to be good, that Pokemon sucked. Now with the physical special split, typings were no longer only physical or special. So if a water move was a physical move and a water type Pokemon had a high physical attack stat, now they could actually utilize that and do a lot of damage, which meant they ruled. Before the split, their physical attack stat meant nothing when using a water move because water was only special. You know what I mean? I don't know if you got that, but I'm moving on. Pokemon that were bad or average can now be viable in battle. This allowed for a bigger variety in Pokemon, movesets, and held items that were never given the light of day in prior generations. It introduced strategy. The Pokemon Company even began hosting in-person tournaments, and with that, the competitive scene was born. Then, like every video game that pits one person against another over the internet, we began to mine. Data mine. Here's the part you might have heard of when people talk about competitive Pokemon. It's something that you've even ran into multiple times throughout your journeys since Gen 2. It's what turned many players, myself included, away from even considering battling competitively. EVs and IVs. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into what these mean because several people over the internet who are a lot smarter than me have already said it better than I ever will, but I'll try to make it as simple as possible so we can just get it over with. EV stands for effort value. Effort values are the stat points your Pokemon gain from knocking out certain Pokemon. It's like how working out or dieting, or the lack thereof, makes me look like this. IV stands for individual value. Individual values are the stat points your Pokemon are born with. Think of these like the genes you were born with, like good skin or hair. things I don't have. These two things in your Pokemon's nature. Oh, God, I forgot to mention your Pokemon's nature is important too. Alright, real quick. Introducing Gen 3, your Pokemon's nature is an adjective your Pokemon has in their summary that you thought was just a cute little detail. No, it's not a cute little detail, it's an annoying little detail. This directly influences 2 random stats for every single Pokemon. Depending on the nature, one stat will grow slower than it normally would, and another stat will grow faster than it normally would. This is why if I have a lonely nature, I'll have a lower defense and a higher attack. I want to be alone. Grr. The other day, I sat down with one of my friends who's played Pokemon his entire life. He played the games, got the guidebooks, watched the anime, collected the cards, owned the merch. I wouldn't be surprised if this guy was patient 0. Get it? Because Pokemon Fever. He started the fever. 24 years later, I was the one to break the news to him. The reason his level 100 Infernape kept losing to his older brother's level 100 Infernape was because of a secret stat he obtained from RNG and knocking out too many Ekans. The look on this man's face for the next 10 minutes as I rambled on about invisible stats that barely affected him for 24 years was that of confusion, bewilderment, and hunger. Hunger for Chipotle. So as my friend went to the kitchen to obtain his leftover Chipotle bowl, I thought, this is the start of a new beginning. I'm going to introduce this man to competitive Pokemon. Now, had this been the year 2011 when the competitive scene really exploded, I wouldn't have come to this decision, mainly because I had no idea about EVs and IVs and natures back then. This was something I heard about 2 years later with the release of X and Y, and I'd been playing these games since Red and Blue. They don't tell you this stuff. For 10 minutes in the year of 2013, using the Gregorian calendar, of course, I was at the receiving end of this conversation. My friend of 8 years, the boy I used to play Pokemon games with since Ruby and Sapphire, explained to me the meta. A world where people would spend all their in-game Pokédollars on vitamins and then run back and forth in tall grass fighting the same Pokemon for hours to obtain the stats they called EVs. A world where people would hatch hundreds of eggs to obtain correct IVs and nature. A world where people would actually use status moves and held items in battle. A world where double battles were the preferred battling method. This was the world of competitive Pokemon. These people were min-maxing. Their objective, hitting fast and hitting hard. Setting up, switching out. Status condition, status condition. You will not win unless you follow the meta or break it. This is why people don't see Pokemon as an esport. In trying to make competitive Pokemon relevant, Game Freak forgot one thing: how to have fun. The actual act of min-maxing is not fun. Sure, creating a team that can utilize abilities, movesets, and stats to benefit one another, what we in the business call synergy, can be fun, but the actual act of building each one of these Pokemon up to this point is not fun. The process of buying overexpensive vitamins and then knocking out an exact number of specific Pokemon to reach your EV goal for just one stat is not what I call fun. In fact, it's quite nerve-wracking. I've done this a dozen times now and I still get anxious. If you don't know exactly where to look online, you can get outdated or just incorrect information. It's so easy to accidentally use the wrong vitamin or even the wrong number of vitamins on your Pokemon. Pro tip, always save before you start and have autosave off. That way you can just restart if you mess up. And the same goes for hatching egg after egg, and then you run into a Diglett with Arena Trap and you forgot to put your competitive Pokemon in your box, and now you gotta knock out that Pokemon, you get the wrong EV. It's a whole thing. Some people might find this relaxing or just something to do, others might find it tedious. You might think, well, Game Freak probably didn't account for min-maxing, to which I would say, you're probably right, but after all these years, why haven't they embraced it? They clearly know about the metagame. That's why every now and then they'll ban certain Pokemon or moves from online use. They know we exploit these systems. That's why you can't see your Pokemon's IVs until after you beat the game. They don't want you ruining your playthrough, min-maxing your team, and breezing through the story. I don't know why anyone would do that. The game is really easy as it is. My point here is why after all these years hasn't Game Freak just embraced the meta and lowered the barrier of entry? Sword and Shield did so much to making getting into the competitive scene easier. Instead of hatching for perfect IVs, you can use the boatloads of experience candy you get from max raid battles to level your Pokemon up to level 100 and then use a bottle cap you get from various other places to hyper train them in whatever stat you need a perfect IV in. Do you see what I mean when I say they lowered the barrier of entry, but it's still too high? On one hand, it seems like whoever's in charge wants it to be easier for people, but on the other hand, it seems like they don't care. Every generation, we get a step closer to making it completely accessible to step into the competitive world. Gen 7 added rental teams, where people could share their team with other players via a QR code, and this continued into Gen 8 as well. You would think this would lead to a rise in players stepping into the scene, right? Since you could try out a fully competitive ready team without having to do any work? No! So many people don't even know this is a thing. I did. I tried it. I didn't like it. I didn't know how it's energized. I didn't know what EVs and IVs these Pokemon had. Was that my fault? Yes. I probably should have done my research, but I didn't want to. Afterwards, I said, fridge this. I want to build my own team with Pokemon I like. And so I did. After way too many losses and a few wins, I learned how the current meta at the time worked. And then I remembered those words my friend told me. You will not win unless you follow the meta or break it. So I built a new team using some of the meta Pokemon and using some things that I thought could break the meta. The amount of research and work and tears I put into this whole process was something that a single teacher could get out of me when I was in school. After I told my friend about all this, he didn't look excited or thrilled. I'm not even sure he retained most of what I said because it's way too complicated, too difficult, and too not fun. The thing is actually though, competing is fun. And so I decided to make him a rental team, in which he would learn the ins and outs as we battled alongside each other. My hope being that this would be the catalyst that could lead him down the path I once took. This man was going to go from filthy casual to sweaty tryhard. Did it work? No. And for some reason the Pokemon company is completely fine with this. This sucks! Pokemon has a huge community of VGC players from all around the world, of all ages. Is the Pokemon company content with what they have? There's so much more room to expand. Instead of trying to bring players into VGC, they seem to be pulling from other genres. There's always been the trading card game, but now we have a fighting game, a MOBA, whatever this is. I don't mind this, but I just wish they would put more time into building up their player base for the mainline games. It seems like they've just given up. What about exponential profit? Come on, more players means more money! No, but really, imagine if this
Drink it in.
So
Just
happy.
drink it in.
was this. It's totally possible. Pokemon is the highest selling media franchise of all time. I hate when people put the at the end like that. Time. Just let players have an easy pickup and play competitive ladder like every other video game that wants to be an esport. This is what makes the website Pokemon Showdown so good. You can build a team with any stats, abilities, or held items you need and start playing within minutes. This website is where a lot of the VGC players go to test out their teams before building them in the mainline games because of how big of a commitment it is. Game Freak could literally implement this exact system into their game and wabam! Esport. Use a little slider to assign the stat you want. But bang! Esport. Write and publish a magazine about cars. Boom! D-Sport. That or just get rid of EVs and IVs altogether. They're ridiculous to begin with. Include them in the main story, whatever, don't care. Competitive matches? Get them out of here! Game Freak has already dabbled in removing EVs and IVs in recent games, so it's definitely possible. Yeah, it's a big ask. We're asking them to admit that they were wrong. To admit defeat. We'll forgive you. That battle system you tried in Legends Arceus? We forgive you. This is your chance to try something new, while still remaining true to yourself. Get rid of EVs and IVs or make them as intuitive as changing my brightness on my phone.
Anybody know how to play this? How to get to the next level?